I stood frozen in my childhood living room, clutching yet another job rejection letter as my sister Tiffany's words cut through the air like a knife. "No one wants you here," she said with a cold smirk, her eyes narrowing as she looked me up and down. What hurt more than her cruel statement was watching my mom silently nod in agreement beside her. My own mother. After Dad died, I thought we might grow closer, but instead, they seemed united in their disdain for me. I didn't argue or beg. I simply straightened my shoulders, blinked back tears, and decided in that moment that I would pack my bags and show them both exactly what I was capable of on my own terms. I always knew I was the less favored daughter in our family. While Tiffany received praise, attention, and the benefit of the doubt, I was constantly criticized, overlooked, and questioned. My dad was the buffer between us, the one person who made me feel valued and worthy of love. But 6 months ago, a sudden heart attack took him from us, and with him went the fragile balance in our family dynamics. "Babette, you can stay for one night, but we need the guest room for Tiffany's in-laws this weekend," my mother said, already walking away as if the conversation was over. She didn't even look back to see my reaction. "I just need a few weeks to get back on my feet, Mom," I explained, following her into the kitchen. The company downsizing wasn't my fault. My supervisor even wrote me an amazing recommendation letter. My mother sighed heavily as she rearranged items in the refrigerator, her back still to me. "You should have seen this coming and saved more money. Your sister bought her first house at your age." What she conveniently forgot was that Tiffany's husband came from money, and his parents had gifted them the down payment. Meanwhile, I had put myself through college, with scholarships and part-time jobs, graduating with honors, but also with student loans that ate into every paycheck. "My rent in the city is $3,000 a month," I said. "I've been saving, but with the cost of living—" "There you go, with the excuses again," Tiffany interrupted, leaning against the doorframe with arms crossed. "Maybe if you hadn't wasted time on that useless art degree and chosen something practical like I did, you wouldn't be begging for handouts now." I bit my tongue, remembering the countless times the same scene had played out throughout our lives. When we were kids, Tiffany broke Mom's favorite vase while running through the house. But somehow I got blamed for not stopping her. In high school, she stole money from Mom's purse for concert tickets, then convinced everyone I was the thief. I was grounded for 2 months while Tiffany enjoyed the concert. Dad had always seen through her manipulations. "Babette," he would tell me privately, "your kindness isn't weakness, though others might mistake it for that. Your creativity and compassion are gifts, not flaws." But now his voice existed only in my memories. That night, I retreated to my old bedroom, the walls still covered with honor roll certificates and art contest ribbons my mother had never bothered to display in the main house. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and began packing, methodically sliding clothes from childhood dresser drawers that still held a few of my things from before I moved to the city. At the back of my desk drawer, I discovered a stack of old notebooks filled with product designs and business ideas I'd sketched over the years. One in particular caught my eye, a concept for sustainable, handcrafted accessories that combined my artistic skills with my concern for environmental impact. I remembered showing Dad these drawings, how his eyes had lit up with pride. "These are remarkable, Babs," he'd said, using his special nickname for me. "You've got the vision and the drive. Don't let anyone tell you it's just a hobby." I tucked the notebooks into my suitcase, alongside the few possessions I could fit. With my apartment gone and most of my belongings in storage, this suitcase and a duffel bag contained everything immediately available to me. After everyone had gone to bed, I slipped out to a motel 6 miles away, unwilling to spend another night under a roof where I clearly wasn't wanted. The room was dingy, with water stains on the ceiling and the faint smell of cigarettes clinging to everything despite the no smoking sign. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the tears come, sobs racking my body until my throat was raw and my eyes swollen. When I finally calmed down enough to unpack my toiletries, I noticed something wrapped in tissue paper that I didn't remember packing. Unfolding it carefully, I found Dad's vintage watch, the one he wore every day of his adult life. and beneath it, an envelope addressed to me in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Babette," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm no longer there to tell you in person how extraordinary you are. I've watched you struggle to be seen in a household that often overlooked your quiet brilliance. I want you to know that I saw you, your creativity, your persistence, your kind heart. Those business ideas you shared with me weren't dreams. They were blueprints for your future. I believe in them, and in you. By now you might be facing challenges without my support. That's why I've set aside something for you. There's an account at First National under your name. The password is your birthday, followed by beauty in unexpected places, our motto from our museum trips. It's not much, just $5,000, but it's something to help when you need it most. Use it as a foundation to build the life and business you've sketched in those notebooks. Remember, the most magnificent structures rise from the deepest foundations. Your time is coming, Babette. Trust yourself as I have always trusted you. All my love, Dad." I clutched the letter to my chest, fresh tears flowing, but different from before. For the first time since my father's death, I felt a spark ignite inside me. He had believed in me enough to prepare this secret gift. I wouldn't waste it. The town of Mapleton was nothing like the bustling city I'd left behind. Located 3 hours away from my childhood home, it was small enough to be affordable, but large enough to have potential for a business someday. I found a tiny apartment above a garage belonging to an elderly woman named Grace Harmon, who seemed more interested in my character than my credit score during our brief interview. "I've got good instincts about people," Grace said, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite the early hour. "You've got honest eyes and capable hands. The place is yours if you want it." The apartment was barely 500 square feet, a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower stall, and a main room that would serve as both bedroom and living space. But the rent was only $600, monthly utilities included, which meant Dad's money would last much longer than in the city. "Thank you," I said, unable to hide my relief. "I promise I'll be a good tenant." Grace waved away my gratitude. "Just no wild parties or drug dealing and we'll get along fine." The first week in Mapleton, I landed 2 part-time jobs, morning shifts at Sunrise Coffee House and evening hours at Target. Between them, I could cover rent and basic expenses while saving a little. Every spare moment went to developing my business plan for Earth and Elegance, the sustainable accessories line I'd dreamed of creating for years. My daily routine was punishing. Up at 4:30 in the morning to reach the coffee shop by 5 on my feet until 1 in the afternoon. 3 hours to work on designs and prototypes, then off to Target from 4 until 10 at night. By the time I dragged myself up the stairs to my apartment each night, my body ached from exhaustion, but my mind buzzed with ideas I sketched until falling asleep. Every few days, my phone would ping with texts from Tiffany. "How's the grand adventure of running away one red? Mom cleaned out your childhood room. Hope you didn't want any of that," Junk said another. My mother's messages were less frequent, but equally hurtful in their indifference. "Your cousin Amanda is expecting. The baby shower is next month. Just letting you know." No question about whether I could attend, or if I needed the address. I stopped responding after a while. Each message pulled me back into a mindset of inadequacy I was fighting to overcome. Grace became an unexpected ally in those early days. Sometimes she would bring up a plate of dinner because I made too much, though I suspected she could see how thin I was getting from the grueling schedule. Other times, she would ask to see my latest sketches, offering pragmatic feedback from her years running a clothing boutique before retirement. "These have potential," she said one evening, examining my designs for handbags made from reclaimed materials. "But you need to consider hardware costs. Cheap clasps will undermine the perceived value." 2 months into my new life, I had saved enough of Dad's money to invest in basic equipment. A heavy-duty sewing machine, quality leather-working tools and materials for my first collection of small clutches and wallets made from sustainably sourced leather scraps and organic cotton. Working at the coffee shop exposed me to a diverse customer base. I started wearing my own creations, A simple crossbody bag I'd designed with pockets specifically for baristas, a wallet with special slots for tip money. Customers began to notice. "Where did you get that bag?" a woman asked one morning while waiting for her latte. "It's exactly what I've been looking for." I hesitated before admitting I made it, actually. Her eyebrows rose. "Seriously, do you sell them?" That night, I stayed up until 3 in the morning setting up a basic online shop. I priced my items modestly, more interested in building a customer base than making large profits initially. But after 2 weeks, I had 0 sales. The algorithms buried my new shop beneath established competitors, and without marketing dollars, I remained virtually invisible. Then came a Wednesday morning that changed everything. The coffee shop was unusually busy, and I was rushing between the register and espresso machine when a stylishly dressed woman in her 40s ordered a complicated drink. While waiting, she kept glancing at the bag slung across my body. "Excuse me," she said when I handed over her drink. "That bag is stunning. The contrast stitching and those repurposed buckles. It's both practical and beautiful." "Thank you," I replied, distracted by the growing line. "I'm Meredith Walker. I own Lavender and Oak Boutique on Maple Street." She handed me a business card. "We specialize in unique, locally made items. If you have more pieces like that, I'd love to see them." My heart raced as I slipped the card into my apron pocket. "I do, actually. I'm Babette. I'd be happy to show you my collection." That Sunday, my one day off, I gathered my best pieces and visited Meredith's boutique. The shop was airy and elegant, featuring clothing accessories and home goods, with a focus on craftsmanship. Meredith examined each piece carefully, asking questions about materials and process. "These are remarkable for a new designer," she said finally. "I'd like to start with 5 pieces on consignment. If they sell well, we can discuss a more permanent arrangement." As I walked back to my apartment, I called Grace to share the news. "That's wonderful!" she exclaimed. "Meredith has a great eye and a loyal customer base. This could be your first real break." For the first time since leaving my family home, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could build something meaningful from the ashes of rejection. 6 months after arriving in Mapleton with nothing but a suitcase and wounded pride, I stood in my apartment, now converted into a tiny studio workspace, surveying my progress. 3 local boutiques, including Meredith's, now carried my earth and elegance accessories. I had managed to quit my coffee shop job, though I still worked part-time at Target to ensure stable income while my business grew. My signature style had emerged: accessories that combined reclaimed leather and textiles with unexpected elements like antique hardware seed beads, handcrafted by indigenous artisans, and organic cotton dyed using food waste. Each piece told a story of sustainability without sacrificing beauty. "Your work exists at the intersection of luxury and consciousness," Meredith told me one day while dropping off a check for my most recent sales. "That's a sweet spot in today's market." The local newspaper had run a small feature on Mapleton's emerging eco-designer, bringing in curious customers and a few more wholesale inquiries. I was still far from financially secure, but the trajectory pointed upward. Grace had become more than a landlady. She was a mentor, occasional assistant, and my biggest cheerleader. One evening, as we shared tea at her kitchen table, she surprised me with a proposal. "I've been watching you work yourself to exhaustion," she said, stirring honey into her cup. "And I believe in what you're building. I'd like to invest $3,000 in earth and elegance." I nearly choked on my tea. "Grace, that's incredibly generous, but I can't accept." She held up a hand. "It's not charity, Babette. It's a business decision. I want 15% of profits for 2 years, after which you can buy me out if you choose." She slid a simple contract across the table. "I had my nephew draw this up. He's an attorney in Springfield." The investment allowed me to purchase better equipment and increase my production capacity. More importantly, it gave me the confidence to apply for a booth at the Tri-State Artisan Fair, an event that attracted buyers from boutiques across 3 states. When my application was accepted, I spent weeks preparing, creating inventory, and designing an eye-catching display that highlighted both the beauty and sustainability of my pieces. The fair would cost nearly all my savings between the booth fee, travel expenses, and materials, but the potential exposure seemed worth the risk. The night before the fair, I was packing my car when my phone buzzed, with a notification from Instagram. Curious about the unusual activity on my normally quiet business account, I opened the app to find several new comments on my latest post. My blood ran cold as I read them. Looking forward to seeing your booth tomorrow. Family businesses are so inspiring. Can't wait to meet the sisters behind Earth and Elegance. Confused, I scrolled through my followers list and froze when I saw a familiar name, Tiff Designs. I clicked on the profile and found myself staring at my sister's face. Her bio read co-creator of sustainable luxury. Earth and Elegance family. My hands shook as I called Grace. My sister and mother are coming to the fair tomorrow, I explained after telling her about the discovery. Tiffany is somehow implying she's part of my business. Take a deep breath, Grace advised. They can't hurt your business in one day. Focus on the buyers and customers who matter. The next morning I arrived early to set up my booth, arranging my pieces artfully against recycled wood displays. By the time the doors opened, I had centered myself enough to greet the first wave of attendees with genuine enthusiasm. The initial hours were promising, with several boutique owners placing wholesale orders and retail customers purchasing pieces directly. Around noon I spotted them, Tiffany and my mother walking toward my booth, both dressed expensively and wearing practiced smiles. My stomach nodded, but I kept my expression professional. "Babette, your little crafts are so cute," Tiffany said loudly enough for nearby vendors to hear. "Mom and I just had to come support the family business." "This isn't a family business," I corrected quietly. "Earth and Elegance is solely my company." My mother touched one of my handbags, examining it with critical eyes. "The stitching is a bit uneven here," she observed. "But I suppose that's part of the homemade charm." I bit back a retort, reminding myself that potential buyers might be watching. "What brings you both to the fair?" "Shopping networking," Tiffany said vaguely, taking photos of my display with her phone. "Plus family support, of course. We've missed you, Babette." The words rang hollow, especially when neither had reached out in any meaningful way for months. They lingered for 20 uncomfortable minutes, asking pointed questions about my suppliers, production costs, and retail relationships. Information no casual visitor would request. After they finally left, I threw myself into engaging with genuine customers, trying to shake the unsettled feeling their visit had left. By fair's end, I had sold out of several styles and collected business cards from boutique owners in 12 different cities. 2 weeks later, as orders from the fair kept me busy with production, I received an email from Heartland Style, a regional magazine that covered fashion and design. "We're interested in featuring Earth and Elegance in our Emerging Designers section," the editor wrote. "Are you available for an interview next week?" Elated, I responded immediately to confirm. This could be the breakthrough that would elevate my business to the next level. The day before the scheduled interview, I received another email from the same editor. "There seems to be some confusion regarding Earth and Elegance. We've already conducted an interview with Tiffany Williams, who identified herself as the creative director and co-founder of the brand. Could you please clarify your role?" My hands trembled as I read the message several times, disbelief turning to rage. I called the editor immediately. "There's been a serious misrepresentation," I explained. "I am the sole owner and designer of Earth and Elegance. Tiffany Williams is my sister, but she has no connection to my company whatsoever." There was an awkward pause. "That's concerning," the editor replied. She provided quite detailed information about the brand's inspiration and future plans. She even showed us designs she claimed were upcoming collections. "Those would be my designs she's stolen," I said, my voice cracking. "I can provide documentation of my business registration, website history, and early sales records to verify I've been operating independently for months." The call ended with the editor promising to investigate, but the damage was already spreading. That afternoon, I received emails from 2 boutiques canceling their orders, citing confusion about the brand's ownership and concerns about consistency. A quick search showed Tiffany had launched social media accounts for Tiff Designs X Earth and Elegance, positioning herself as the real creative force behind the brand, while painting me as a difficult relative who had branched off with a few derivative pieces. When I confronted her by phone, her response was chillingly unapologetic. "You abandoned the family when we needed you," she said coolly. "Dad's medical bills put a strain on Mom's finances, and you ran off to play entrepreneur. Consider this your contribution to the family you left behind." "Dad would be disgusted by what you're doing." I shot back, tears burning my eyes. "Dad's gone," she replied. "And he left you that money and watch because he felt sorry for you. Besides, Mom and I need this opportunity more than you do right now." "What are you talking about?" There was a pause. "Nothing. Just stay in your lane, Babette. There's plenty of market share for both of us." After hanging up, I called my mother, hoping against hope she would see reason. Instead, she defended Tiffany. "She's just building on family ideas," Mom said dismissively. "You always were selfish about sharing." The conversation confirmed what I'd suspected. They were facing financial problems they'd hidden from me. While that explained their actions, it didn't excuse the theft of my creative work and business identity. Within a week, my once promising trajectory had reversed. Boutiques hesitated to place orders amid the confusion, and social media comments questioned my authenticity. I watched helplessly as Tiff Designs launched products that mimicked my aesthetic while undercutting my prices. Possible only because she wasn't paying for the research and development I'd invested in creating the designs. Sitting on my apartment floor, surrounded by inventory I might not be able to sell, I called Grace, barely holding back tears. "I think it's over," I said. "I can't compete with her connections and resources. Maybe I should just get a full-time job somewhere and forget this dream." "Come downstairs," Grace replied firmly. "Right now." When I entered her living room, I found not only Grace, but also a man I recognized as a regular from my coffee shop days. "Babette, this is Jack Patterson," Grace said. "He's an intellectual property attorney, and he thinks you have options." Jack extended his hand. "I bought one of your wallets at Lavender and Oak last month. Then yesterday I saw a copycat version in another store and recognized it wasn't your craftsmanship. When I asked questions, the shop owner mentioned some family dispute about the brand. I connected with Grace because I thought you might need legal advice." For the first time in days, a flicker of hope returned. But it was immediately extinguished by another revelation. According to a mutual acquaintance, Tiffany and my mother had taken out loans using business projections based on my actual sales figures, massively overrepresenting their production capacity and market position. They weren't just stealing my designs. They were building a house of cards that could collapse at any moment, potentially taking my reputation down with it. The morning after meeting Jack, I drove to my sister's house, determined to make one final attempt at reasoning with her before things escalated further. Tiffany lived in a sprawling suburban home, the kind featured in lifestyle magazines with perfectly manicured lawns and imposing front columns. I used to admire her apparent success. Now I wondered how much of it was built on facades and deception. She opened the door in yoga clothes, looking momentarily startled before her expression hardened. "Babette, unexpected visits aren't really appropriate." "Neither is intellectual property theft," I replied, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." In her immaculate living room, I laid out printouts of my original designs alongside photos of her knockoffs. "This ends now, Tiffany. I've consulted an attorney. You need to stop using my designs and clear up the confusion you've created about earth and elegance." Instead of showing remorse or concern, she laughed. "An attorney? With what money besides you? Abandoned the family when we needed support, so you owe us this opportunity." "I didn't abandon anyone," I countered. "I was literally told no one wanted me there." "Because you were being a drain," Tiffany snapped, her composure cracking. "After Dad died, Mom needed help with the mortgage. His medical bills wiped out their savings. You were supposed to move back and contribute, not run off to play entrepreneur. This was news to me. No one ever asked for my help with finances. You and Mom just criticized me for losing my job. Because you should have read between the lines where family, you should have offered without being asked. I shook my head in disbelief. That's not how communication works, Tiffany. If you needed help, you should have said so directly, instead of pushing me away and then punishing me for leaving. Our argument was interrupted by the arrival of our mother, who entered without knocking, clearly expected by Tiffany. Seeing them together, presenting a united front against me, brought back the painful memory of that day in the living room, when they'd made it clear I wasn't wanted. "Mom," I said, turning to her, "did you know Tiffany has been passing off my designs as her own? That she's misrepresenting herself as the creator of Earth and Elegance?" My mother glanced at the printouts spread across the coffee table. "You've always been overly protective of your little projects, Babette. Sharing ideas is part of being in a family. This isn't about sharing," I insisted, frustration building. "This is about lying and theft." Such dramatic language, my mother sighed. "Tiffany has simply refined your concepts and made them marketable. She has the business acumen you lack." The conversation devolved from there, with both of them insisting I was being selfish and uncooperative. It became clear that no logical argument would penetrate their justifications. I left feeling even more determined to protect my work through legal means, regardless of their familial relationship to me. Back in Mapleton, I found a message from Ansley Cooper, the Heartland style editor, asking to meet in person to discuss the situation with Earth and Elegance. We arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between our locations. "I've been doing some digging," Ansley said after we ordered coffee. "Your documentation clearly establishes you as the original creator. The timeline doesn't support your sister's claims." Relief washed over me. "So you believe me?" "The evidence speaks for itself," she replied. "But here's where things get complicated. Your sister gave quite an extensive interview, much of which we've already prepared for publication." My stomach sank. "So you're running her version anyway?" "Not exactly." Ansley stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "I'd like to do a different type of story. One about authentic creativity versus appropriation, with your journey as the central narrative. It would address the situation directly while establishing you as the legitimate founder." While this represented a potential turning point, my business was still suffering. 3 more boutiques had canceled orders, citing the brand confusion. Social media comments on my business pages were filled with questions about the family dispute and which products were the real Earth and Elegance. Tiffany had launched an aggressive marketing campaign, leveraging our mother's social connections to secure placements in stores that had previously expressed interest in my line. She portrayed herself as the victim of a jealous sister who couldn't handle healthy competition. When I checked my business email that evening, I found another blow. A message from a customer who had inadvertently received inside information. "I attended a trunk show where your sister was selling Tiff Designs X Earth and Elegance products. When I mentioned I owned one of your original pieces, she told me confidentially that your parents' home is in pre-foreclosure, and this business venture is their last hope to save it. I thought you should know she's using this sympathetic story to make sales." I immediately called a real estate contact in my hometown and discovered the truth: my childhood home had indeed entered foreclosure proceedings. My mother and Tiffany had apparently taken out a second mortgage to fund their counterfeit business operation, using falsified income projections based on my actual sales data. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Not only were they stealing my creative work and undermining my business relationships, but they were also gambling our family home on the success of their fraudulent operation. That night, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. When I answered, I heard my mother's voice, uncharacteristically fragile. "Babette," she said. "No greeting or preamble. We need your help. The house. We're going to lose it." I sat down slowly on my bed, emotions warring within me. "I know about the foreclosure, Mom." "Then you understand why what Tiffany's doing is so important. If her version of the business succeeds—" "Her version," I interrupted. "You mean her theft of my designs and misrepresentation of my brand?" "You're being stubborn," she said. her tone shifting to the familiar criticism. "This is about family survival." "No," I replied firmly. "This is about honesty and respect, neither of which you or Tiffany have shown me. So you'll just let us lose everything, after all we've done for you?" The question hung in the air, breathtaking in its audacity. All they'd done for me. The memories flooded back. Years of being the less favored daughter, of having my accomplishments minimized and my failures magnified, culminating in that final rejection that had sent me away with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. "What exactly do you think you've done for me, Mom?" I asked quietly. Her silence spoke volumes. Finally, she said, "We need $40,000 to stop the foreclosure. Can you help us or not?" "Not under these circumstances," I answered. "Not while Tiffany continues to undermine everything I've built. If you want my help, it comes with conditions." She hung up without another word. The next day, Jack called with unexpected news. "A boutique owner in Oak Ridge recognized one of Tiffany's pieces as a copy of your design and refused to carry it. Apparently, this led to a confrontation where Tiffany made some legally actionable statements about you and your business." "What kind of statements?" "The kind that constitute clear defamation," Jack explained. "She claimed you stole her original concept and business plan. The store owner recorded the conversation because she felt something was off. She's willing to provide the recording and testify if needed. This evidence, combined with my extensive documentation of the original designs and business development, gave us leverage to take legal action." Jack sent a cease and desist letter to Tiffany and began preparing more extensive legal proceedings. Meanwhile, Ansley's article in Heartland Style ran with the headline, "Earth and Elegance, a story of authentic creation and the fight against appropriation." The piece detailed my journey from rejection to building a sustainable fashion brand, alongside a careful documentation of Tiffany's subsequent attempt to co-opt my work. The public response was immediate and overwhelmingly supportive. Messages flooded in from customers and boutique owners expressing solidarity. 3 stores that had canceled orders reached out to reinstate them. The regional manufacturer, who had been hesitating due to the confusion, confirmed their interest in a partnership. As my business regained momentum, I received word that Tiffany and my mother's operation was facing its own crisis. The investors they had courted with inflated projections were discovering the discrepancies between promises and reality. 2 had already threatened lawsuits of their own. Their house of cards was collapsing and taking my childhood home with it. "Document everything," Jack advised, spreading papers across my small kitchen table one evening. "Every sketch, every prototype, every sale. We need to establish an incontrovertible timeline." In the weeks following the Heartland Style article, I worked with Jack to create a comprehensive portfolio of my business development. We filed for proper trademarks and copyright protections for my designs, steps I'd neglected in my early focus on creation rather than legal protection. "It's not just about stopping Tiffany," Jack explained. "It's about securing your future against any similar challenges." Meanwhile, Grace had introduced me to the Mapleton Small Business Association, a network of local entrepreneurs who provided both practical support and moral encouragement. Through their connections, I secured a small business grant that allowed me to hire 2 part-time assistants, both fashion design students eager to learn about sustainable production methods. With help managing basic production, I could focus on developing new designs that took my aesthetic in a more sophisticated direction, clearly differentiating my work from Tiffany's knockoffs. I incorporated techniques that required skill and craftsmanship she couldn't easily duplicate: hand-woven elements, complex layering of reclaimed materials, and custom hardware created by a local metalsmith. My production capacity expanded with the regional manufacturing partnership, allowing me to fulfill larger orders for boutiques across multiple states. An unexpected email arrived from a buyer for a national department store chain specializing in sustainable luxury goods. "We've been following your journey through the Heartland Style piece," the buyer wrote. "Your commitment to authentic creation and sustainable practices aligns perfectly with our brand values. Would you be interested in discussing a limited collection for our spring showcase?" This opportunity alone could transform Earth and Elegance from a regional curiosity to a nationally recognized brand. The timing couldn't have been better. Just as Tiffany's copied products were being pulled from shelves following our legal actions. One rainy Tuesday evening as I worked late, finalizing designs for the department store collection, Grace called me downstairs. I found her sitting with a distinguished older woman I didn't recognize. "Babette, this is Eleanor Whitfield," Grace said. "She's the chairperson of the Sustainable Fashion Showcase in Chicago." Eleanor extended her hand. "Miss Reynolds, your work has caught my attention. We'd like to invite Earth and Elegance to present at this year's showcase." The Sustainable Fashion Showcase was a prestigious event that highlighted innovative approaches to ethical fashion. Being invited was an honor typically reserved for established designers with years in the industry. This is unexpected. I managed trying to maintain professional composure despite my excitement. "Your story is compelling," Eleanor said frankly, "but it's your work that earned this invitation. The integration of reclaimed materials without compromising aesthetic appeal is precisely what the industry needs to see." As my professional life flourished, my personal relationship with Jack evolved beyond our initial attorney-client dynamic. What began as strategy sessions about protecting my business gradually transformed into dinners where we discussed everything from film preferences to childhood dreams. I never expected to find someone who gets as excited about intellectual property law as I do about sustainable design. I joked one evening over pizza. "It's the creative problem-solving aspect that connects them," Jack replied thoughtfully. "Finding the unique approach no one else has considered." With Earth and Elegance gaining momentum and my personal life finding balance, I might have been content to leave the situation with my family unresolved. But one morning a notification appeared on my phone. A local news article from my hometown featuring a photo of my childhood home with a foreclosure auction sign prominently displayed in the front yard. Despite everything seeing the house where I'd grown up, where Dad and I had spent hours in his workshop creating small projects together, where I'd sketched my first designs at the kitchen table, headed for auction sent a pang through my heart. That same day, I received an unexpected visit at my studio space, which had expanded from my apartment into a proper workshop in downtown Mapleton. The receptionist buzzed to announce a visitor named Laura Reynolds, my mother. She looked smaller somehow, her carefully maintained appearance showing signs of strain. The designer clothes had been replaced by simple slacks and a sweater I recognized from years before. "Babette," she said, her voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. I didn't know where else to go. I invited her to sit in the small office, adjacent to the production floor. Through the glass partition, my assistants glanced curiously at the visitor. "The house goes to auction next week," she said without preamble. "Everything is falling apart." "Where's Tiffany?" I asked, noticing her absence. My mother's expression tightened. "After the investors sued and the legal notices from your attorney arrived, she decided to take some space. She and Brian are staying with his parents in Colorado." The revelation didn't surprise me. Tiffany had always disappeared when consequences loomed. "I'm sorry about the house," I said, meaning it despite everything. "But you and Tiffany made decisions that led here." "We were desperate," my mother replied, a hint of defensiveness returning. "After your father's medical bills." "You could have told me," I interrupted. "Directly and honestly asked for help instead of rejecting me and then stealing my work." My mother looked down at her hands. "Asking for help isn't something I know how to do very well." The admission, small as it was, represented more vulnerability than I'd seen from her in years. "I need $40,000 by next Friday to stop the foreclosure," she continued. "I've sold my jewelry, cashed out what was left of my retirement account. I'm still $15,000 short." I studied her face, searching for manipulation, but finding only exhaustion and defeat. "What about Tiffany and Brian? They have resources." "Brian's parents refused. They said we'd made our bed." She hesitated. "Tiffany told them some things about our situation that weren't entirely accurate." "You mean she lied?" I translated flatly. My mother didn't deny it. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. But that house was your father's pride and joy. He built that workshop for you two to share. The mention of Dad's workshop struck the intended chord. Those memories remained precious, despite everything else that had happened. I need to think about this, I said finally. And if I do help, it won't be without conditions. After she left, I called both Jack and Grace for advice, explaining the situation and my conflicted feelings. You're under no obligation to help people who've tried to destroy your business, Jack pointed out. But it's not just about obligation, Grace countered. It's about what will bring Babette peace. Sometimes the most powerful position is to help from strength rather than withhold from hurt. That night, I sat with my father's watch in my hand, remembering his words about structures rising from deep foundations. Perhaps this crisis could become the foundation for something neither my mother nor I could yet imagine, a genuine relationship built on honesty rather than expectation and disappointment. The next morning I called my mother with a decision. I'll help with the house, I said, but here are my terms. The day after my mother's visit, I met Jack for coffee to discuss my conditions for helping with the house. I'm thinking of offering the money, but not as a gift, I explained. As an investment in their future, with accountability attached. Jack nodded thoughtfully. That could work, but you need to protect yourself legally. What specific conditions are you considering? I'd spent half the night considering this question. First, complete transparency about their financial situation, past and present. Second, they both need professional help, financial counseling for the practical issues, and therapy for the deeper patterns. Third, some form of acknowledgement and amends for what they did to my business. Those are reasonable, Jack agreed. But will they accept them? That remained the question as I drove to my childhood town that weekend, a cashier's check for $15,000 in my bag, the amount needed to complete what my mother had already gathered to save the house. The familiar streets brought back a flood of memories, not all of them painful. This was where Dad had taught me to ride a bike, where we'd walk to the ice cream shop on summer evenings, discussing my future dreams. My mother answered the door immediately, as if she'd been watching for my arrival. Tiffany sat in the living room, having apparently returned from Colorado for this meeting. Before we discuss the house, I said, remaining standing while they sat, I need to understand exactly how this happened. Initially resistant, my mother eventually revealed the full story. After Dad's death, they discovered his life insurance had lapsed during his illness, an oversight in the chaos of his final months. The medical bills had depleted their savings, and the mortgage had fallen behind. Why didn't you tell me this when I first lost my job? I asked. I would have helped however I could. You were already struggling, my mother said quietly. And I prompted. And I was ashamed, she admitted. I'd always prided myself on financial stability. The idea of asking my daughter for help felt like failure. Tiffany interjected. When you started posting about your business successes online, it seemed so unfair. There you were thriving while we were drowning. So, you decided to steal my designs rather than simply ask for help. I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. It wasn't planned that way initially, Tiffany said, showing the first signs of genuine remorse I'd seen from her. I thought I could create similar items that would sell quickly, but nothing I made had the same quality or appeal as yours. Then one buyer specifically asked for designs like earth and elegance, and I just went along with the assumption we were connected. Their justification still rang hollow, but at least they were finally being honest about what had happened. I removed the envelope from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. This is enough to cover the remaining amount needed to stop the foreclosure, I said. But it comes with conditions. I outlined my terms. They would sign a legal agreement drafted by Jack, acknowledging my sole ownership of earth and elegance, and relinquishing any claims to my designs or business. They would attend financial counseling to create a sustainable plan for the house moving forward. And most importantly, they would commit to family therapy to address the long-standing patterns of favoritism and manipulation. Why should we have to go to therapy just to save our house? Tiffany objected. Because I'm not just saving a house, I replied evenly. I'm investing in the possibility of a healthier family. If that's not what you want, you're free to find the money elsewhere. My mother reached for the envelope. We accept your terms. As I drove back to Mapleton that evening, I felt neither triumphant nor resentful. Just a quiet certainty that I'd made the decision that honored both my boundaries and the possibility of healing. Back in my expanding workshop, I threw myself into preparations for the Sustainable Fashion Showcase. The collection I was developing represented my most ambitious work yet, a series of pieces that told a visual story of transformation with materials evolving from raw, reclaimed elements into refined, elegant forms. Jack had become a constant presence in my life, offering both professional guidance and personal support. One evening, as we worked late reviewing contracts for the department store partnership, he paused thoughtfully. You know, he said, when we first met, I admired your creativity and determination. But watching how you've handled this situation with your family, that's when I realized how exceptional you truly are. The comment caught me off guard. Most people would say I should have cut them off completely. Most people haven't been tested the way you have, he replied. There's strength in boundaries, but there's also strength in offering chances for redemption while protecting yourself. The showcase in Chicago exceeded all my expectations. Earth and Elegance received enthusiastic response from industry professionals, with 3 high-end retailers requesting meetings about exclusive collections. Fashion blogs featured my work alongside designers with decades more experience, highlighting the innovative use of materials and the emotional resonance of the sustainability story. In the midst of this professional high, I received an unexpected email from Ansley at Heartland Style. I've been following up on your family situation journalistic curiosity. Can't help it. Your sister had an interesting conversation with one of my colleagues yesterday. Thought you should know. Attached was a transcript of an interview Tiffany had given to a junior reporter. In it, she made a surprising admission. I've spent years resenting my sister's relationship with our father. He always seemed to understand and appreciate her creativity in a way my more practical nature didn't register with him. When he died and left her that special gift, it confirmed every insecurity I'd ever had about being the less loved daughter. The revelation stunned me. All these years, while I had felt like the overlooked child, Tiffany had harbored her own version of the same wound. The recognition of our parallel pain cracked something open in my understanding of our family dynamics. That weekend, I had my first scheduled therapy session with my mother and Tiffany. I joined via video call, uncertain what to expect. The therapist, Dr. Wyman, created a structured environment where we each shared our perspective without interruption. When my turn came, I spoke honestly about the pain of always feeling measured against Tiffany and found wanting. Every achievement was minimized, every struggle magnified. The day you both told me no one wanted me there, that was just the culmination of a lifetime of feeling unwelcome in my own family. My mother listened with an expression I couldn't quite read. When she finally spoke, her words shocked me. I always saw so much of your father in you, Babette. The creativity, the quiet determination. After we married, I discovered those were the qualities that made me feel inadequate. I couldn't create the way he could. I couldn't see possibilities the way you both did. She took a shaky breath. I didn't favor Tiffany because I loved her more. I favored her because she was like me, practical, conventional, safer. Loving you meant acknowledging all I couldn't be. The admission hung in the virtual space between us, reframing a lifetime of interactions. It didn't erase the hurt, but it offered a new lens through which to understand it. Dr. Wyman guided us through the initial shock of these revelations, establishing ground rules for our ongoing work together. As the session ended, I felt emotionally drained, but also lighter, as if a burden I'd carried so long I'd forgotten its weight had begun to shift. Later that night, I found myself looking through old family photos, seeing familiar scenes with new understanding. There was my mother, always slightly rigid beside my father's relaxed creativity. There was Tiffany achieving in all the conventional ways that would make our mother feel secure and validated. And there was I so clearly, my father's daughter, in how I viewed the world. a constant reminder to my mother of what she felt she lacked. Understanding didn't automatically create healing, but it opened a door that had long been shut. The path forward would require consistent effort from all of us, but for the first time, I believed such a path might actually exist. The next morning, I received a call from the department store buyer. We'd like to increase our initial order by 40%. The advance team is extremely excited about the collection. As I hung up, I looked around my workshop, now employing 4 assistants and producing for boutiques across the country. In just over a year, I had gone from being told, "No one wants you here," to creating something truly wanted by many. The journey had been painful, but standing amid the physical evidence of what I'd built, I felt a profound gratitude for the rejection that had forced me to find my own way. That evening, as Grace and I celebrated the expanded order with sparkling cider on her porch, she asked a question that made me pause. If you could go back to that day when they told you to leave, would you change anything? I considered this carefully. I wouldn't change leaving. That needed to happen. But I might change how I left. How so? I left in shame and hurt, I explained, believing their assessment of my worth. If I could go back, I'd leave with the certainty I have now, that rejection often says more about the person doing the rejecting than it does about you. Grace nodded approvingly. That's a lesson worth every painful step it took to learn it. As the porch light illuminated her wise face, I realized Grace had become the unconditional support I'd always craved from my mother. Some family we're born into, some we find along the way. Both can teach us about ourselves if we're willing to learn the lessons. 1 year later, I stood in the spacious interior of Earth and Elegance's flagship store in downtown Mapleton, watching as the final displays were arranged for the grand opening. The space, once a forgotten warehouse, now featured exposed brick walls, reclaimed wood shelving, and carefully curated lighting that highlighted the sustainable luxury aesthetic of my expanded collection. The press release went out this morning, my marketing manager Danny reported. We've already got confirmations from 6 major fashion blogs and 3 regional magazines for the opening. I nodded, adjusting a display of handbags crafted from vintage leather jackets, combined with organic cotton canvas. In the corner, a glass case held my original designs, the pieces I'd created in Grace's garage apartment when all I had was determination and my father's belief in me. So much had changed in 2 years. Earth and Elegance now employed 17 people, had partnerships with 15 high-end retailers nationwide, and had been featured in Vogue's Sustainable Brands to Watch issue. The department store collection had sold out within 2 weeks of launch, leading to an expanded ongoing relationship. My mother now worked 3 days a week, managing the administrative side of the business. The transition hadn't been smooth at first. Her organizational skills were valuable, but we had to establish clear boundaries about decision-making authority. Regular therapy sessions had helped us develop healthier communication patterns, though we still occasionally fell into old dynamics during stressful periods. The family home had been sold 6 months earlier. A mutual decision after acknowledging it carried too many complicated memories and was larger than my mother needed. She now lived in a comfortable townhouse 10 minutes from the Earth and Elegance workshop, making a fresh start in a space without the emotional baggage of the past. Tiffany's journey had been more complicated. After initially refusing my offer of employment, she had struggled to find her footing professionally. The fallout from her counterfeiting attempt had damaged her reputation locally, and her marriage to Brian had ended when the stress exposed fundamental incompatibilities. 3 months ago, she had finally accepted a position in Earth and Elegance's marketing department where her practical business sense complemented my creative vision, when she kept her competitive tendencies in check. The local business association sent these, Grace said, entering, with an arrangement of flowers. At 74, she had officially retired from daily involvement in the business, but remained my most trusted advisor and had an honorary seat on the board of directors. They're beautiful, I replied, making space on the front counter for the arrangement. Is Jack still picking you up for the opening? 6 o'clock sharp, Grace confirmed. That young man runs on military precision. Jack and I had been dating for just over a year, our relationship evolving naturally from professional collaboration to personal connection. His analytical mind balanced my creative intuition, and his steadfast support during both business challenges and family reconciliation had proven his character beyond doubt. As afternoon faded toward evening, I retreated to the small office at the back of the store for a moment of quiet reflection before the grand opening celebration. My father's watch sat in a small display case on my desk, alongside the letter he had left me. I often touched it for reassurance before important events, a tangible connection to the parent who had seen my potential when others couldn't. A knock at the office door interrupted my thoughts. My mother entered looking elegant, but understated in a dress made by our production team from reclaimed textiles. "Everything looks wonderful, Babette," she said, genuine admiration in her voice. "Your father would be so proud." "Thank you," I replied, still finding it slightly strange to hear her freely invoke his memory and connect it to my accomplishments. "Are you ready for tonight?" She nodded, then hesitated. "I wanted to give you something before everyone arrives." From her purse, she withdrew a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photograph I'd never seen before, my father and me in his workshop when I was about 9 years old. We were both focused on something I was creating, his hand, gently guiding mine. Our expressions mirror images of creative concentration. "He took so many pictures of your projects," my mother explained. "I found boxes of them when we were selling the house. This one seemed significant." The gift represented more than just a photograph. It was acknowledgement of a connection she had once resented but now honored. "This means a lot," I said quietly. "Thank you." The store opening exceeded all expectations. Fashion industry professionals mingled with local supporters who had been there from the beginning. Meredith, my first boutique connection, raised a toast to seeing potential and watching it flourish. Grace beamed proudly from a special chair we'd placed for her near the central display. Halfway through the evening, I noticed Tiffany standing, somewhat awkwardly near the entrance, observing rather than participating. I made my way toward her, offering a glass of champagne. "The turnout is impressive," she said, accepting the drink. "You've created something remarkable here." "We have," I corrected gently. "Your contributions to the marketing strategy for this launch were significant." She looked surprised at the acknowledgement. "I've been thinking about what Dr. Wyman said in our last session, about how competition between siblings often masks a desire for connection. And I'm trying to compete less and connect more," she admitted with a small smile. "It's not my natural setting, but I'm working on it." It was the most vulnerable I'd seen my sister in our adult lives. "I appreciate the effort," I said sincerely. "It matters." After the guests departed, and only the team remained, I gathered everyone for a final toast before closing. My mother and Tiffany stood among my employees, no longer separate from the life I had built, but now integrated into it, imperfectly with ongoing work required, but genuinely. 2 years ago, I stood in a different living room being told no one wanted me. I began meeting my mother's and sister's eyes without accusation, simply stating a fact we all acknowledged. That moment, painful as it was, became the foundation for everything we're celebrating tonight. I raised my glass, to rejected stones becoming cornerstones, to doors closing, so we find our own way to build something new, and to the people who believe in us when we're still learning to believe in ourselves. As glasses clinked and conversations resumed, Jack appeared at my side, slipping his hand into mine. "Profound and succinct," he commented. "The perfect balance." Later that night, after the celebration ended and the last team members departed, I took a final walk through the silent store. The space represented not just a business success, but a personal transformation. From someone defined by others' rejection, to someone who defined herself through creation and resilience. I paused at the display case, holding my first designs, remembering the tears and exhaustion that had accompanied their creation. The pain had been real, but so was the growth it precipitated. Sometimes being told you don't belong somewhere is the universe's way of pushing you toward where you truly do. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of my reflection in the store window. Confident, accomplished at peace, with a past that had been integrated rather than erased. The journey from rejection to success had never been about proving my worth to those who couldn't see it. It had been about discovering that worth for myself and building something meaningful from that knowledge. The flagship store stood as a physical manifestation of that discovery, a space created entirely on my terms, welcoming to others but no longer dependent on their approval for its value. Outside, Jack waited in his car to drive me home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, continued family therapy sessions, and the next phase of business growth. But tonight, I could rest in the certainty that I had transformed pain into purpose, rejection into direction, and in doing so found not just success, but genuine fulfillment. Have you ever faced rejection that ultimately led you somewhere better? I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and reinvention in the comments below. And if this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of transformation and growth. Share with someone who might need a reminder that rejection often redirects us to where we truly belong. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the courage to build something beautiful from life's unexpected turns.